On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping, there was a shootout in the Bab el-Mandeb. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So the Bab el-Mandeb is the Gate of Tears. It is the connection between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. It's a narrow strip of water that separates the Arabian Peninsula from the Horn of Africa, and it is a key maritime choke point. We've been talking about the Bab el-Mandeb quite a bit, but on December 3rd, 2023, three commercial ships were the subject of four separate attacks, including attempts to attack a U.S. Navy destroyer in the region. We're going to talk about those attacks and what does this mean for global shipping going forward. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. So the U.S. Central Command on December 3rd released this press statement, which is a great breakdown of the events. Now, it doesn't have every little piece of information that I want in it, but it's got a lot of information, and we're going to use it as the basis for our talk today. The ship in question are three commercial vessels and a U.S. destroyer. The U.S. destroyer is one familiar to you if you watch this channel. It's the guided missile destroyer USS Carney, a Arleigh Burke Flight 1 class destroyer. Built back in 1996, it's 27 years old. Based in Mayport, Florida. It had been based in Rota, Spain for a brief period of time, shifted back to Mayport. It was USS Carney that was the subject of a video earlier back in October entitled Vampire, Vampire, where the Carney engaged 4 cruise missiles and 15 drones that were launched from Yemen toward Israel. Vampire, Vampire is the code name given by U.S. Navy for inbound missiles. The Carney was patrolling inside the gates of the Bab el-Mandeb, the gates of Tyr in the Red Sea, and was present for the 3 other attacks on other vessels in the area. So the first attack took place against a ship called the Unity Explorer, then a vessel, the number 9, and then another vessel inaccurately named the Sophie 2, and I'll talk about that in a second. This is a great chart done by SchizoIntel. He is a great follow on Twitter. I pulled this from him. You'll see the position of USS Carney here inside the Red Sea. This is the Bab el-Mandeb, a narrow little strip between Yemen and Djibouti. This is Eritrea here. This is Ethiopia. This is Somalia. And then the belief is that another U.S. Burke-class destroyer, the Mason, was just outside the Red Sea, and then further up the Red Sea is the U.S. amphibious group centered on the Bataan, along with another Burke-class destroyer, the Thomas Hudner. You'll also see this vessel here, the motor vessel Bashad. This is an Iranian vessel, or Iranian base ship, that is monitoring traffic coming in and out of the region. So at about 9:15 local time, the Carney detected an anti-ship ballistic missile attack fired from Houthi-controlled area of Yemen toward the Unity Explorer and impacting in the vicinity of the vessel. All right, you have 2 types of anti-ship missiles. One is kind of a cruise-style missile. This is the style of a sea skimmer, low to the surface, kind of like an Exocet or Harpoon. And then you have a ballistic one that follows a ballistic arc. So it goes high in the atmosphere, comes screeching down, and explodes. So the first attack against the Unity Explorer from Yemen-based territory was unsuccessful. Now, the Unity Explorer is a Bahamian-flagged vessel, UK-owned and operated breakbulk vessel with sailors from 2 different nations on board. This is marine traffic and their information. The ship was coming from the Suez en route to Singapore. And matter of fact, one of the things this vessel did that gives you an indication of a potential issue was it turned off its AIS transponder as soon as it came out of the Gulf of Suez, so the very northern part of the Red Sea. The Red Sea is 1,000 miles long. This gives me an indication that this vessel may have suspected it could come under attack. And if you look at the ownership of this vessel, which is that UK company, it's a UK company known as the Unity Group, Danny Unger, who is an Israeli, is the CEO of it. And so it's believed that because this ship has an Israeli ownership connection through the CEO of the company, they may have suspected that they were a potential subject of attack. And you can see that through their ownership. This is from Equus. This is a site that allows you to kind of drill into it. You'll see right here, the ship manager is Unity Ship Management. The ship manager, commercial manager is Unity Maritime. The registered owner is Unity Explorer, all located at the same address. This is all part of the Unity group that is based in the UK. So it appears that Carney was in the area of Unity Explorer and proceeded to check out the situation. At approximately 12 noon, so this is 2 hours and 45 minutes later, and while in international waters, Carney engaged and shot down a UAV, an unmanned aerial vehicle launched from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. The drone was headed toward the Carney, although the specific target is not clear. So obviously, Carney is operating under a rule of engagement that allows it to engage drones or UAVs within a certain radius around the vessel. We don't know how Carney engaged the UAV. Did they use an SM standard missile type 2 to knock it down? Probably overkill. Did they use their 5-inch gun, which can shoot directed munitions or shotgun shell blasts out? Did they use the CWIS, the close-in weapon system, CRAM? Did they use an electronic means to fry the electronics of the UAV and knock it down? We don't know. But there's a variety of weapons and techniques that the Carney could use to do that. There was no damage to the U.S. vessel. At 12:35 p.m., so 35 minutes after this, Unity Explorer reported they were struck by a missile from Houthi-controlled territory. Carney responded to the distress call, and while assisting with the damage assessment, Carney detected another inbound UAV, and it destroyed that drone with no damage or injuries to the ship. So Carney is not escorting the Unity Explorer. Unity Explorer is Bahamian flagged. The U.S. will not escort foreign flagged vessels. That doesn't happen unless there's some sort of mandate authorizing it, either from the U.S. government or the United Nations through the U.S. government or some sort of, organization that's going to do it. Carney responded to a distress signal. Now, Carney will respond to distress signals, came to the Unity Explorer, detected this drone coming in, the second one, and knocked it out. Now, was that drone heading for Carney or Unity Explorer? Don't know. But if Carney probably put itself between Yemen and the Unity Explorer, it's going to take whatever shots are coming at it. Now, obviously, Unity Explorer survived this. There's false images right now out there on Twitter showing a burning vessel. That's not Unity Explorer. That's a ship called the Express Pearl. I'm not going to show it to you because it's just wrong. It's a false information. But the Unity Explorer has left the area and sailed away. The story goes on that at approximately 3:30 p.m., the motor vessel number 9 was struck by a missile from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen while operating in international shipping lanes. Number 9, again, most unimaginative name you could possibly come up with, Panamanian flagged, heading from Singapore toward the Suez, so it was inbound into the Bab el-Mandeb, was struck. Now, this ship, again, is a 16-year-old container ship coming in to the region. Looking at it, was struck by a missile from Houthi territory. The Panamanian flag, Bermuda and UK owned and operated. The Central Command identified it as a bulk carrier. It's not a bulk carrier. It is a container ship. Reported damage and no casualties. One of the reasons that this ship may have been targeted, and it was running its AIS, is that if you look at marine traffic, it identifies the manager as Zim Integrated Shipping, a Zim vessel. Now, we know Zim has been diverting vessels away from this region, not sending them in. But if we look at Equus, one of the things we see is that the ship manager, the ISM manager, and the registered owner, well, the ship manager is Bernhard Schultz Ship Management. So BSG is a German firm. They operate a lot of ships. The Bernhard Schultz Group is well known out there for operating ships. They operated, for example, Ever Given when it went through the Suez Canal back in 2021. But you'll notice the registered owner here is number 9 Shipping, care of Bernhard Schultz Ship Management in the United Kingdom. Again, one of the difficulties you have here is penetrating through the layers to determine who exactly a ship owner is. And it raises a question for me, is if the Houthi believed that number 9 was Israeli based on previous information of being with Zim, then they may be operating under old information, which means that their ability to penetrate and dig down may not be so sophisticated. On the flip side of that, digging down through BSG and number 9 ship limiting, maybe they found that there is an Israeli ownership. Who knows? But this ship obviously did not expect an attack on it, or else it would not be displaying its AIS going through the region. Then, shortly thereafter, at 4:30 p.m., an hour later, the CENTCOM puts it down as the motor vessel Sophie 2. It's actually the motor vessel AOM Sophie 2. Sent a distress call stating they were struck by a missile. The Carney again responded to the distress call. Man, Carney is just rocking out there, and reported no significant damage. While en route to render support, Carney shot down another UAV headed in its direction. Sophie 2 is a Panamanian flag bulk carrier crewed by sailors from 8 countries. Here's the information on AOM Sophie 2. The ship had sailed from Venezuela, came across the Atlantic through the Mediterranean, through the Suez Canal, and is en route to China. The ship is right here, bulk carrier, 3 years old, sailing under the flag of Panama, 81,000 deadweight tons. So it is loaded down. Again, trying to figure out ownership here is a really interesting one, because ownership for this vessel, when you look at Equus, for example, puts it over with the Kiowa Keeson company and Greenspanner. This is a part of Imabari. So potential Japanese ownership. Remember, the Galaxy Leader, which has been captured and is being held in Yemen waters, was operated by NYK Lines, and we know there is Japanese interest here. So this ship appears to be under a Japanese ownership. All of this comes back to the bigger issue here of what does this mean for the Bab el-Mandeb? 3 different commercial ships, 4 separate attacks, 2 on Unity Explorer, 1 on number 9, 1 on AOM Sophie, and multiple attacks against the USS Carney. Now, Carney is under no obligations to defend any of these ships, because all these ships are flying open registries, Bahamian, Panamanian flags. The U.S. does not have any obligation to escort those vessels, and by all accounts, it's not escorting those vessels. It's responding to attack, so it's being reactive, not proactive. However, the fact that Carney has been the subject of potential attacks here, or UAVs flying in, I am questioning what the United States is going to do. Does the U.S. decide to target these sites in Yemen and knock them out? We know that the U.S. has got 2 carrier battle groups in the area, but they are pretty far from this region. The Ford battle group is up in the Mediterranean, watching the situation regarding Israel-Hamas. The Eisenhower battle group is in the Persian Gulf, and pretty far away from this area too. The U.S. just seems to have destroyers, Burke-class destroyers, the Mason, the Carney, and the Thomas Hudner in the area. They could move the amphibious ready group down and attempt to knock out these sites. They can deploy air aviation assets to Djibouti, fly from there or from other bases, and knock out the region. I have to raise the question about why would people want this going on? Who benefits from this? Understand the Eisenhower up in the Persian Gulf is there for a specific reason, and that is to keep Israel and Iran from going to war with each other. That's the big reason right there. If Israel wants to strike Iran, they can hit Karg Island, the main oil export facility in the northern Persian Gulf, knock it out. That cuts Iranian oil exports tremendously. That is an escalation of the war. And I think one of the reasons the Eisenhower is up there is in a strange way is to protect Iran, or to be a referee between the two, to prevent them from going to war. So that's why they're up in the Persian Gulf. I think whoever is supporting the Houthi, probably Iran, but there may be other players at role here. It's going to be interesting, because now that there are attacks against ships that don't have clear Israeli ownership, that means insurance rates are going to start going up. That means to travel through these areas is war risk insurance. That means it's going to get more expensive. Companies may decide to divert. This could mean higher costs. It could mean more ships getting hit. And the question is, where do you get the war risk insurance for this? You know, one of the countries that is trying to become a bigger and bigger player in international shipping is China. China has been offering war risk insurance for ships going in and out of the Black Sea. Maybe they're going to try to offer more war risk insurance, underwrite Lloyd's and the other big insurance underwriters to get a role here, because we know there are Chinese vessels based in Djibouti watching this happen. There's a lot we don't know. And let me be clear, a lot of that was this supposition I gave you. I want to be clear about that. But we need to understand that this is more than just the Houthi shooting missiles. This is a potential disruption of global trade. And that route that goes between the Suez Canal and the Bab el-Mandeb and comes out is the most heavily trafficked ocean shipping route in the world. And disrupting that ocean shipping route will have grave consequences to global economy, global supply chain, and the ability to move goods around the planet. This is coming from the Houthi, who have seized power in Yemen. They are the de facto government of Yemen, although people don't recognize them as such. And they have been attacking ships basically at will for years now. And now it is escalating. And U.S. destroyers are finding themselves in the mix. I do have a question about where European vessels in this. There should be some European vessels down here. A lot of these ships are heading to Europe. So they should be down there providing this assistance too. Is this the job of the U.S. Navy? No, it's not the job of the U.S. Navy. While we love to talk about the U.S. keeps the seas free, they do it for U.S. ships and U.S. trade. A lot of this cargo, a lot of this movement is nothing to do it. They just came to the defense of a ship sailing from Venezuela to China. So that's not really a U.S. interest. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? Well, you can hit the super thanks button down below or head on over to Patreon. You'll see the link at the end of the video or down in the show notes, and you become a monthly or yearly subscriber. Till our next story, this is Sal signing off.